So Success After High School, Voices of Conference Presenters. So today that's going to be the focus of our meeting. We'll start off with maybe if each of us could introduce ourselves, because we do have a couple of special guests, presenters in today's meeting, both Sophia Apgar and Sara Gardner. And but let's make sure that we all know each other, and so maybe just our names, any affiliation we have, maybe there's an organization we work with, or we're a parent, or whatever our status is. That brings us here, and then we'll get started. So how about if Natalia, you go first.
Hello, my name is Natalia Velasquez. I'm the program director for the Boys and Girls Club. I'm also on the Autism Coalition board and the chair for the Cultivating Inclusion Celebration.
Great, great. Welcome, Natalia. And let's see, let's go with Lisa Davis.
Hi there, I'm Lisa. I work with Morningside Services and also the president of the Lewis County Autism Coalition.
Great, welcome. And both of you have done exactly what we need to be doing. So whenever we're muted, we need to unmute to be able to talk. So thank you for doing that. And how about Rachel? You can go next.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I have a autistic college freshman, yay. I also have an autistic 12th grader, and we are soon to diagnose one more. So it's never boring. And we are homeschooling this year, so we have half homeschooling college and homeschooling 2 teenagers, so it's really fun in this house.
It sounds like it, and it sounds like the topic of today's meeting is spot on for your family. So let's see, how about Allison Jenkins?
Hi, I'm Allison Jenkins, Family Resource Coordinator at Birth to 3 Growing Together program and treasurer of the Lewis County Autism Coalition.
Great, welcome Allison. And let's see, how about Sophia?
Hi everyone, I'm Sophia. I am a first-year graduate student at Indiana University currently. I'm studying school psychology. I recently graduated from Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma, Washington, and I am an adult on the autism spectrum.
Great, thank you, Sophia. Thank you for being here. Let's see, next, how about Sara Gardner?
Hi, I'm Sara Gardner. I am the Neurodiversity Navigators Program Director at Bellevue College, and I was diagnosed autistic at age 41.
Great, welcome, Sara. And next would be Shelley Frappier.
Hi, I work at the Academy for Precision Learning in the University District, and I'm the Pathways Counselor. And I'm really excited to listen and learn.
Great, welcome Shelley. And Gwen Burke.
Hi, I'm Gwen. I'm currently a substitute paraeducator with the transition program in Rochester School District. And I am also a student at Centralia High School in their Bachelor's of Education, working towards getting my special education endorsement.
Great, welcome Gwen.
Thank you.
And let's see, how about Victoria? So you want to unmute yourself. Let's see. Victoria, you there? Okay, how about Julie Worrell?
Hi, I'm Julie. I work with ESD 112 in Vancouver, Washington. I also work with the Child Care Aware team. So just interested in hearing and learning today.
Great, welcome Julie. And let's see, Kyle Jorgensen.
Hi there, Carl Jorgensen. I am a teacher, math teacher at Onalaska High School. Also have a 16-year-old on the spectrum, and to the best of my knowledge, although we're undiagnosed, my wife and I really were also on the spectrum. And our 16-year-old, we're very interested in the idea of how do we get him ready for adulthood? So I'm looking forward to today's topic.
Great. Welcome back, Cal. And let's see, how about Shauna Howler?
Hi, Shauna Haller, Lewis County parent-to-parent coordinator, and also a parent of a child on the spectrum.
Great, welcome, Shauna. And Sarah Sons?
Sarah Sons, Lewis County Public Health and Social Services, and I coordinate the Developmental Disabilities Program.
Great, welcome, Sarah. And Victoria, are you able to introduce yourself this time?
Yeah, I had to get out and then go back in. Victoria Romero, parent of a child on the autism spectrum and the LINK coordinator, Resource Center for Autism and Behavioral Health.
Great, welcome. And Katie Howell.
I'm the Director of Special Education for Chehalis Schools.
Great, welcome, Katie. And who have I missed? If I've missed you, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Okay, sounds like we've got everyone. So welcome everyone to the meeting. And as I was describing earlier, so today's focus is success after high school, voices of conference presenters. And we had two special guests presenting this morning. And that's Sophia Apgar and Sara Gardner. And also just to cover myself, I am Bill Wiseman, and I'm the facilitator of the Lewis County Autism Coalition. So we're going to start with Sophia. What we're going to do is have Sophia speak for several minutes. She'll need to exit probably by 10 o'clock. And then I introduce Sara Gardner to also describe her experiences and background and be able to answer similar questions. And then we're going to open it up for a larger discussion about what are the needs of Lewis County teens and adults for support to be successful after high school. And we'll take a look at the conference and what else about the upcoming autism conference is going to be speaking to these needs. So, and of course, both Sophia and Sara are presenters at the conference. So the first question I'm going to ask Sophia is maybe just tell us a little bit more about yourself and what we can anticipate hearing in the workshop that you're presenting at the conference.
Okay, so I grew up in Oregon, and I was always in general education classes. My mom has told me that she always knew that I was on the autism spectrum, but because it never affected me academically, she never got me formally diagnosed until I sought that out myself in college. And so it was sort of an odd dichotomy of, because she's a special educator, she sort of unofficially implemented a lot of interventions at home that I later learned were relatively common for students with autism. And so then when I was in undergrad, I was formally diagnosed, which means that I missed the deadline to be considered as having Asperger's syndrome because the DSM-5 changed things. And then I took a lot of special education classes in undergrad to learn more about disabilities in general and neurodiversity as a broader subject so that I could both learn more about myself and then also it became an interest that I wanted to pursue further. And so I ended up going to graduate school for that. But my college experience was a whole bunch of trial and error of figuring out what worked and what didn't. And I went to a fairly small liberal arts university. So in some ways that was a really big advantage. And in other ways, there were resources that larger institutions have that my school did not, as I'm now learning at a R1 Big Ten school.
Right, okay. And tell us a little bit about the workshop that you plan to present for the conference.
Yeah, so I have basically compiled a whole bunch of my experiences, both positive and a little bit rockier, in terms of navigating different elements of being an adult on the autism spectrum, specifically related to post-secondary education and college, but a lot of it is also very applicable to just not being in high school. And so I plan to start with like a brief note about the differences between IDEA and ADA and sort of the legal framework for the transition from high school to post-high school existence. Because something that I've discovered is that very few people, educators included, know really what's going on there. And a lot of students get to post-secondary education and kind of experience a large shock when they realize that the legal framework is different now, especially if they were served under IDEA in middle school, high school, elementary school. And so then I plan to talk about some things that worked really well for me, both supports from the university, faculty, staff, other students, as well as things that I just sort of stumbled upon or set up myself that ended up working really well. And then also some things that I wish I had known sooner, and how adults surrounding a student on the spectrum can best support them in what's really just a whole bunch of transitions rolled into one.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And maybe just tell us a little bit more about your, I know you're, as you mentioned, you're in first year of graduate school. And my understanding is you're pursuing a degree in school psychology, or hope to maybe become a school psychologist. So just tell us a little bit about that choice and all that commitment that has led you to want to make a career in this work.
Yeah, so when I started undergrad, I thought I wanted to be an elementary school teacher. And then I quickly switched over to music education because I was doing music all the time and couldn't stop if I tried, and realized that that was theoretically going to be a good path for me. And along the way, I was doing all of my classes. I picked up a Spanish major because that was really important to me, and I really enjoyed languages. That's always been something that I've been super interested in. And then I ended up getting a minor traumatic brain injury my junior year of undergrad. And part of that came with a significantly reduced noise and light tolerance, even beyond what I normally experience as sensory limitations. And that really showed me that maybe being in a room with like 50 small children with loud instruments all day, every day was not the best life choice for me in terms of sustainability and preventing burnout and just being fulfilled. And so I ended up dropping my music education major and sticking with just my Spanish degree. And that same semester that I got that brain injury, I was taking what was essentially an introduction to the rest of the education system for music educators class. And in there, we covered special education very briefly. We covered schools as systems, sort of the ecological framework for the schools in which we would theoretically be working as music teachers. And I found that I was way more fascinated by the systems surrounding special education and the supports that are and aren't available to students with differing abilities and needs than I was with my music classes anyway. At that point, it was too late for me to switch to a special education degree because I was 3 or 2.5 years into my program. And so I decided to take as many special education classes as I could and started looking at what can I do with this, because I'm still pretty sure that being in a classroom all day, every day is not a good choice for me and my own sensory tolerances and skill sets. And so in discussions with my special education professors and other faculty at the school, I sort of learned about different supporting services that were related to special education, but not specifically in a classroom. And the more I learned about it, the more it seemed like school psychology would be a really good fit for the part of me that's very analytical and enjoys data-based decisions and problem solving, while still working to support students whose needs aren't necessarily being met by a traditional school system.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And let me just ask you one more question, then we can open it up to others. What do you see as the key challenges and solutions, or the supports needed for neurodiverse teens and adults to have success after high school? What are sort of what's that short list of either key challenges or the solutions or supports that are needed to be successful?
Yeah, so I think that one of the big things that I've encountered as a university student is that the vast majority of faculty really do not have any clue what neurodiversity is, much less how to support students. I've learned that to be a university professor, you actually need very little training in pedagogy and like how to instruct. And so some professors are spectacular at it just through either personal experiences or happenstance or some professional development they've picked up along the way. And other professors are like, huh, what do you mean you have a disability? What does that mean? Your grades are fine. And that happened in high school a fair bit too, but I found that most high school educators at least have a concept of like disabilities as a thing that exist. And so I think that on a systemic level, universities, it would be wonderful if they included more trainings for their faculty and staff about what neurodiversity looks like, what it doesn't look like, what it can look like, and just like basic, really universal design things that can be super helpful for students who are neurodiverse. I encountered many times, even with my special education professors, the statement, this is super helpful for all students, not just those with disabilities, as they then proceed to not do it. And my thought was always, did we cease to become students as soon as we graduated high school? Because it really often felt like it. It's like, oh, you're no longer a student. You can fend for yourself, even though I'm still clearly a student and these supports are still just as helpful to me, even though I'm no longer in secondary school. So that was something that I encountered a lot. Even things as simple as writing your agenda on the board at the beginning of class do wonders for me in terms of being able to engage with the content and not with the environment around me. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge that I've encountered is faculty who really want to be supportive but have no clue where to even begin. I found that with about half of my faculty, I wouldn't tell them that I'm on the spectrum. I would just say, hey, I have accommodations through the university. This is what helps me be successful. And so teaching students to really advocate for themselves in terms of concrete things that are helpful for them, which requires a lot of trial and error and also like self-knowledge. And I think those are skills that we can start fostering in students very young to help them be successful, not only in university, but also just in all of their life endeavors. If I can go into a situation and say, hey, I need to sit near the door so that I'm less distracted by other things. Or in some cases, I need to sit as far from the doors and windows as possible so that I can engage with you. Or other little things like that. It's a lot easier, I think, to navigate the world if you know what works for you. And I also think it's a lot easier for people who don't really know much to be able to say, oh, okay, you need this, rather than a lot of professors I found, if they hear the word autism, they freak out. But if they hear that I need to be able to knit in class because it's a fidget for me and it keeps me focused on their lecture, they're totally fine with that. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Sophia. And in a few minutes, when we hear from Sara, we'll be hearing about a program at Bellevue College that Sara founded and has been program director of for 10 years or more now, the Neurodiverse Navigators program. So we're looking forward to that conversation, but maybe just for a few more minutes while we have your presence, Sophia, let's just open it up for other questions. And maybe to identify yourself as having a question, maybe you could use the reaction mode there on the bottom right of your Zoom screen to raise your hand, or otherwise maybe put a note in the chat box just so we can make sure that we recognize anyone who has questions. But anyone who would like to offer a question or a comment in response to what you've heard from Sophia so far?
I see Allison.
Yeah, Allison, please go ahead. Go ahead.
I put a note in the chat box, but I'll just read it here. It says, thank you, Sophia.
Okay.
This is very helpful. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Sophia. This is very helpful. Also useful for those of us who work with children to think about as we also work with their parents who may have a disability, known or unknown to us.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that, yeah, the things that are especially helpful for students on the spectrum are usually generally helpful for all people to some extent. And a lot of them are really small things that are not huge barriers for schools, for universities, for workplaces to implement that can be super helpful and can help people who might not even know themselves that they have a disability just navigate the world a little bit more easily.
Right. Great. Thank you. How about Natalia?
Hi, Sophia. Thank you again for coming in today. I appreciate it. So I did notice that you were saying that if you just to say what you need help with, that you get a better understanding of what you need help with versus saying I'm on the spectrum and then having that kind of like, oh, what do I do? So I feel I've gone through a lot of the same things with people who I know, and it was expressed that you're right, just to simply do something for somebody actually helps everyone. And is the big thing about anyone who is on the spectrum, that they speak up, that if you can, you be the voice of everyone else that you know, not just people on the spectrum, but people with all abilities, because anyone could benefit from it. It's just a change of a mindset that everyone needs to have. And so I appreciate you saying that, because I feel like that really brings true that whole perspective of it, that we can change for everyone with any ability and be kind and caring for everyone. So thank you.
Great.
Of course. I see that Cal has asked a question in the chat about whether or not I would indicate that I'm on the spectrum when applying for a job. And I think a lot of that would really depend. As Sarah just mentioned, it's not a legal requirement that I do. And I think a lot of it would depend on my prior interactions with the person, whether the language that they used has indicated that they have an idea of what that might mean, and whether or not they are viewing neurodiversity from a deficit mindset or a strength mindset. I find that for a lot of people, it tends to work better if they know me as a person and then add the fact that I'm on the spectrum to that existence. One of my closest professors, who I still consider a really important mentor in my life, I think I told her that I was on the spectrum sometime in my junior year of undergrad. So she had already known me for 2.5 years at that point. And I sort of just mentioned it in one of my classes while I was meeting with her. And it was one of those things where she was like, okay, that sort of explains some things. Like it helps me understand you better as a person. But I feel like if I had led with that, our relationship might have been quite different. Because I think the general public still doesn't really know quite enough about neurodiversity to be able to not reduce that to a single story. I watched a really spectacular TED Talk the other week about the danger of a single story by a Nigerian author. And when we have labels for things, it is way too easy to reduce every facet of a person's existence to that one characteristic. And so I think that, again, depending on the situation, it might become very quickly obvious that this person would be super supportive of that, and it would be fine for me to disclose like during an interview or in an application. I do think that based on my curriculum vitae, I think that some people might be able to infer that I was on the spectrum. Just, you know, when I put things like presentations at this conference and the title of my presentation, which includes personal experiences, on my resume, I think people might be able to infer. But at the same time, I think that because it might affect nearly everything that I do, but it's still not everything that I am, I think it's important for people to form their opinions about me as a person before sometimes adding that description to it.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. I know we're gonna maybe just ask a couple more minutes of your presence, your participation. Let me just ask you a question that about the future. The Autism Coalition is 10 years old this year, and we're in the process of crafting a vision for the next 10 years, for 2030. Where do we want to be in the year 2030? So when you think of down the road as long as 10 years from now, what would be different? What's your vision for 2030? What if we're in a better place as a society or as a county or as a community? What would be different that would that would show us progress?
Yeah, so I think that as I've sort of alluded to already, just more awareness in society at large about disability, about neurodiversity, about what that means, what that doesn't necessarily mean, and hopefully a mindset shift from a medical deficit model to more of a social and strength-based model of what neurodiversity is. I think that will be super important. I also see potential for a lot of the social justice movements that are currently beginning and happening to include neurodiverse people, especially neurodiverse people who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color. I think that they are still severely underrepresented in the autism advocacy community, and I think that that is something that we're going to need to address in order to move forward as a community about addressing the needs of neurodiverse people who also have intersections with other marginalized identities. And I think hopefully also a broader commitment on a societal level to increasing access for everyone, not just people who are neurodiverse, but including some of those things that make things easier for all people to access all aspects of society that they want to. I think one thing that I personally would like to see is a greater emphasis on different options for post-high school success. I think right now, high schools are increasingly pushing the college is the only acceptable post-high school path. I definitely experienced that when I was in high school. And I think that for some students that can be extremely motivating, but for others that can be really damaging, especially if their career and life goals don't necessarily include or require a college education, or they know themselves well enough to know that a traditional college experience isn't going to be super fulfilling for them. I think that there are a lot of people, I have friends who are neurodiverse and friends who aren't, who, desperately want to be a beauty technician. And that requires a completely different type of post-secondary experience than someone who wants to be a Spanish professor. And I think that validating and encouraging all of those trajectories is going to be really important, especially for people for whom their experiences don't necessarily match the traditional narrative that we tend to push, especially in high schools, and for students for whom academics have been an area of success.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. I really appreciate your voice in this meeting, and looking forward to the workshop at the conference. I think we'll be looking a little bit later in the meeting at what some of those other workshops are, but I think we're really looking forward to your presentation. And again, thank you for being here this morning.
Of course. And if anyone has further questions or wants to engage in further dialogue, I'm going to put my email in the chat. I am in Eastern Standard Time right now, so sometimes time zones get a little weird, but I'm happy to continue this conversation.
Great. Again, thank you for your participation. And so what we're going to do is we're going to segue to Sophia, to Sara Gardner. And as Sara introduced herself, and I described, Sara is the program director of the Neurodiversity Navigators program at Bellevue College, which now in 10 years, I guess, or 10 years plus, is really a nationally recognized model. And Sara, my understanding is that you've been there from the beginning, perhaps founded the program. And so maybe the first question to ask is just a little bit more about the program, or about your own experience, including what you're planning to present at the conference. You need to unmute yourself.
I created the program in the summer of 2011. And so we started in the fall of 2011 with 18 students, and now we've grown to over 130. And then we also serve students at the college, neurodivergent students at the college, who are not part of our full program services. And so that's gosh, 300, 400 students. We don't really keep track of that number. So one of the things that I'll be talking about at the conference is a little bit about the program, how it works, not too much. I don't spend too much time on that, but that's a little bit of what I'll be talking about. A little bit about our outcomes in the program. And then I'll also be talking about barriers that students experience in college, and then the social justice model, which Sophia mentioned a little bit. We are definitely a strengths-based model, not a deficits model. I'm going to be talking about the importance of intersectionality. So that is definitely along the lines of the danger of a single story, not looking at a person as only an autistic person, but looking at everything that makes up that person, and then also looking at what we bring to the table as the person interacting with the student. We're also going to do a fair bit of talk about communication and what that actually means, because people usually look at autistic people as having a communication deficit. That's one of the diagnostic criteria. But what recent research is showing is that it's really a communication difference, and that autistic people communicate just fine with other autistic people. And so what does that mean when we're talking about what do we need to do? And autistic people will socialize just fine with other autistic people. And then where the problem comes in is when it's with typical people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then I'm going to look at best practices for college students, what the research says, what our experience is showing. So that's really what we're going to cover. If it's okay with the group, Bill, I haven't talked to you about this yet. I actually have our program chair of our counseling center and one of our faculty who teaches a lot of our classes as well, who has agreed to come in and give some of their experiences along with what I'm saying. So we can talk about that offline, but it adds a lot to what I'm saying. So that's really what I'm going to be sharing in the presentation.
Okay. Great, thank you. And let me ask you the question that I asked Sophia too, which is, what do you see as the key challenges and solutions, like what supports are needed for neurodiverse teens and adults to have success after high school?
Yes, for sure. So Sophia and I agree on quite a few things. In fact, I don't think there's anything we disagree on. So there's 4 main areas that we focus on in our program. One is self-advocacy that Sophia mentioned. And then we also look at executive functioning, social interaction, not social skills, but social interaction, and self-regulation. And that self-advocacy piece is something that is so important, and I agree should be taught since kids are itty bitty. And also agree that all students should be taught this. This is a point that Sophia and I agree on very, very much. Everything that helps an autistic student helps all students. Basically, neurodivergent people are people, and anything that's going to help them is going to help anyone. Universal design is the thing that helps autistic people the most, and universal design supports all sorts of people and makes things more accessible for everyone. So, for example, starting in kindergarten or preschool, students should be taught how to know what they need, how to ask for what they need, how to take responsibility for those choices. That's what self-advocacy is. Jane Nelson wrote a really wonderful parenting series called, I always forget what it's called. Practical parenting, perfect parenting, something that starts with a P, parenting. So Jane Nelson, she's got a website too. But if anybody wants to raise their kids in a way that they will learn self-advocacy, positive discipline, that's her thing. Yes, advocate. Exactly, Natalie. Everyone needs to know how to do that, not only autistic people, but it's so, so important for autistic people. And then, yes, as Sophia was saying, in regards to whether you tell someone you're autistic or not, right now, that doesn't mean anything to people, or it may mean something that is negative to them. So the name of the book is Positive Discipline. The name of the website is Positive Discipline. Here, I'll write it here. There's a whole series.
Okay.
Okay. So other things that students need, the key challenge really is people's attitudes that everyone needs to be the same, that everyone needs to access everything the same, that all students need to be the same and do the same things, that everyone should just simply understand how to be, right? And so there's a lot of like this implied stuff that many people don't understand. And so again, universal design, putting things in writing, having, as Sophia said, that agenda available, all of those things are going to support better access for everyone, and coincidentally, neurodivergent people.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And I'm going to ask you another question, but before I do, I want to ask if you have a question for Sara, go ahead and put it in the chat box, and then when she's answered this next question, we'll be able to move into some of those, into that discussion. So the question I have, Sara, is that in the last year or more, the Centralia College Student Senate, so the student body leadership within the college, and a number of faculty, including the trustees, have given a positive affirmation to the idea of creating an autism-friendly campus at Centralia College. And yet there's that concept, but getting to implementing it is sort of maybe the big stretch, or the big leap forward that needs to be achieved. So my impression is that you, having a model program for 10 years, have probably been approached by a number of colleges and have probably offered advice to a number of colleges to replicate the program. And so give us a little sense of both maybe to what extent it has been replicated in other colleges, maybe in Washington State or beyond, but especially what advice would you give to a college, whether it's the student side or the faculty or management or administration side, as to what steps to take to consider replication of the program, knowing that it's a cutter approach, it needs to be customized to that college, but what is possible with the replication of what you've already developed?
Well, we're sometime this year going to publish our peer mentor manual, which will definitely support colleges in replicating our program. We do consult with other colleges. We've consulted with 3 colleges so far, and definitely, talk to many other colleges about giving them ideas and, thoughts. The main barrier to colleges, though, is that hiring peer mentors costs money, right? And that's probably the biggest barrier that colleges run up against. It is not expensive to consult with us. It's just a hourly consulting fee, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Replicating the program is not a complicated thing to do. You don't necessarily need a lot of staff. We do it with 2 full-time staff, and we have one of the largest programs in the nation, where other colleges are running similar size programs with 10 staff. We're doing it with just 2 full-time staff. So because we use the resources of the college, we are not recreating a college within our program. We use the college resources for our students, which I think is a good model. So colleges can definitely consult with us, and we're happy to work with them. One of my goals is to create a training center at Bellevue College, so other colleges can come to us. Now that we know we can be virtual, that will be far less expensive as well for other colleges. But the main thing that they need is the funding to hire peer mentors, or to create an internship program for unpaid internships, but that's a little more difficult to do because most students these days want paid internships. Ideally, though, an autism-friendly campus takes me to your vision for 2030 question.
Great, okay.
Is really where everything is accessible for all students. And we would have what we're doing for our neurodivergent students who aren't part of our full program right now is we have drop-in project labs. Much like the Academic Success Center has drop-in tutoring, where the college funds that, right? They fund that for all students. And my idea is they would fund this probably through the Academic Success Center, where students can drop in and ask questions, ask access questions, but that the college itself would be much more accessible to everyone. And the main reason we have to have our program right now, there's two main reasons. One, lack of access in most student affairs programs, right? It's very difficult, that communication piece. Surprisingly enough, it's much more accessible now that we're online because students can email, students can do virtual meetings that they never could do before. They had to go in person before, and that was very, very difficult. The other thing that they don't have that I wish they could have in the future is that foundational education in self-efficacy, feeling good about themselves, understanding what their strengths are. Instead, they come to us from K through 12 with this learned helplessness because they've spent their entire educational career with people trying to fix what's broken about them. They spend it in social skills classes with people trying to make them socialize like a typical person instead of teaching them the strengths that they have, and all these other things. And so if they could spend all their time focusing on their strengths, they would be much better prepared to access a college education. That's what I see as the key challenges for teens and adults to have success after high school, is to be confident within themselves.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So let's open it up to other questions. Anyone has, I see a note in the chat box that Parent to Parent in Lewis County, where Shauna is the coordinator, has a lending library. And there are 2 positive parenting books by Jane Nelson there. One called Positive Parenting for Birth to 3, and on that is Positive Discipline for Children with Special Needs.
Sorry, I was just gonna type that they're called Positive Discipline, not Positive Parenting. I was apparently.
Okay.
But yes, we have 2 books.
But there's 2, yeah. Right.
Just something to throw out there that Parent to Parent does have a lending library, and we have books about raising special needs children. And I just happened to look and saw that we have 2 of those books.
Right. Okay. And let's see, Sarah's saying that for older children, adults, and spouses, you can also take, let me just see if I got this. You can also take a look at Changeable by Stuart Ablon, and that's in the chat box. So open it up for questions here. Who has a question or a comment to Sarah before we then open it up for just a general discussion? But any questions directed at Sarah? Anyone? Go ahead and speak up if you want to, or put your question in the chat box.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi. So I have been helping, our juniors and seniors this year, and this year looks definitely different. One thing, I feel like every single student, we just always end up on Bellevue College just because of the amount of accommodations available, the amount of resources available. So you might have a large influx of my students coming to you. But what do you think about right now kind of helping? There's so much nerves and stress around COVID and what that's going to look like. And I'm kind of hard pressed to try to predict the future about what maybe graduating this year and going into college looks like. Do you have any kind of calming suggestions I can send to students? Because it's kind of a up in the air sort of world right now.
Yes, for sure. So I can tell you that before we did orientation this summer, I was extraordinarily nervous because usually we do orientation in an extremely large auditorium. We usually have 60 incoming students each fall. We had 45 this year, probably because everyone was nervous as well, right? So, but I was really nervous because I usually do them all together. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do them all together. And we had 45 students on Zoom. And I was terrified. And it was a wonderful experience. They all bonded. They started their own social media channel on Discord. They got together on the weekends and went for hikes. They made friends very quickly. We used breakout rooms. They did group projects right away in that first 3 weeks, which is what I've experienced in person too. But they did better on Zoom than they've done in person. And now we're in the classes and they're doing great. They're doing their assignments, which a lot of times they haven't done assignments before. You know, not all of them, but some of them. They're attending very regularly. So I am not seeing a huge problem with the remote learning. And even in the other classes, they're meeting with their peer mentors. The peer mentors are supporting them. If they have a problem, they're calling on me for advocacy with the faculty. We're having conversations. Faculty are coming to me with all sorts of access questions, which is great. I'm seeing lots and lots more communication than I ever saw when we were on campus. And so I would really encourage students to continue their education. The college has, currently we have COVID funds for students who need laptops. Xfinity has made hotspots available all over every location. So if a student doesn't have Wi-Fi at home, they can go to a pretty close by hotspot and use that Wi-Fi. So one student told me that they didn't have reliable Wi-Fi, and I found 30 hotspots close to them that they could go to. So even for our students who have more difficulties at home, they're doing okay. So I would really encourage students to go. We have a good wraparound infrastructure. We've got counselors if they need them, etc. So I would say go for it, even though you're feeling anxious. We're all feeling anxious. We can share that feeling together and we'll get through it. Yeah. Right. Lisa asked, do we ever do tours of our programs? So we have information meetings on the second Monday of each month, starting in January. And right now I have a video of an information meeting up there. And what we're going to be doing is having people watch that video and then come to a Q&A. So it'll be a Zoom Q&A where you can just ask questions and anything you didn't, you want further information from that video, you can ask. We don't do tours of the program because that kind of violates the privacy of the students in the program. Now, once we're back on campus, we will have a new Neurodiversity Center. So we'll have a grand opening of that. People can come to that. You'll see where we are, how we're set up and everything. I might consider having if we have informational meetings back on campus, I might consider opening that up during that time and showing people what it looks like. But I probably will never do tours when students are there. So that's just kind of, that's my answer to that question.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So other questions anyone has? So go ahead and raise your hand or go ahead and speak up if you have a question. Okay. thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. That is, we really appreciate the work that you're doing and have been doing for 10 years or more, and your presentation coming up at the conference. I think it really does dovetail nicely with several others too that are going to be, we're looking forward to, which we'll share a little bit in a few minutes. But let's just open it up with this general discussion. One of the questions that I asked Sophia and Sara was what supports are needed for Lewis County teens and adults. So this whole question of success after high school or success in adulthood, obviously college is one path forward. There are multiple other paths forward. So it's just who would like to offer their thoughts on this question of what supports are needed. Maybe there's a parent voice that would like to speak up. So like Cal or Rachel or anyone else that would like to just offer your thoughts, because one of the pieces that the Autism Coalition is committed to and has initiated work on, and that is this work of providing supports and activities for teens and adults that are responsive to the identified needs. So there now is a neurodiverse connections group within the Autism Coalition. So this meeting today offers an opportunity for some input, helping, because the process of identifying needs is an important step for the group. So who would like to offer any their thoughts on this? Yeah, Rachel. You've got, as you said, you have a college freshman and a high school senior. Yeah, what do you see as the needs for support?
So my oldest is going to Centralia College. He's in the welding program over there. But one of the hardest things that we have is the fact that the college will not talk to me because I am not the student. So when you have a child who all of a sudden has to really take on the advocating role, it is extremely difficult. And we found that more of his quirks popped out. He's on the autism spectrum, but I have each end of the spectrum. So my 12th grader is on the lower functioning, and then my college is on the higher functioning. And to get him to slow down and to alleviate problems with meltdown issues or frustration issues, we would use a method of we'd sit down and we'd brainstorm together and have him write out all of his questions. And I have a few questions, so he would write them all out too. So when he we had to use the help desk a lot because a lot of the people are not actually at the college. A lot of them are still working from home, so that can be an issue. So we'd have to wait days sometimes to get answers. We did not get the special autism accommodation at the college here. We went in, we talked to the lady about it, but it was very difficult going from a 504 into college because I found out that the majority that we had on the 504 couldn't be accommodated at the college. So when we looked at this, about the best thing they could do is if we had an issue, yeah, the disabilities coordinator there could back us up, but he had to disclose everything from his official diagnosis to, there was a list of stuff, and it was just a mess. And so my son and I sat down and we decided not to. And he decided that if he needed help, he would rather email his teacher and disclose that way if he needs to, or advocate through those kind of avenues. The other thing that we found that is really, really difficult is the fact of our high school here in Centralia does not have the ability to teach some of these advocating skills. I have found that if it wasn't for me, you know, and a checklist and us checking off together, I don't think my son would have made it into college. We had to really get real, that we knew he was not going to be a child that was going to go away to college. We got real about that. I'm like, there's no way. You can't fully manage your money. You know, you don't drive yet, so let's get real. And our high school pushes more of a trade and college route, but the people at the high school aren't really geared towards helping with these situations or telling you how to achieve the goals, because they don't even know. Like, I have had to go and figure this stuff out and make phone calls and try to Google and support a child that is normally, like, you wouldn't know my son is on the spectrum. Like, we did a lot of early intervention, but now that he's in college, you can see more of the quirkiness that he has popping out. So we have had to kind of backtrack and use our calming skills. And we also have a great friend who allows my son to go to his shop and helps practice his skills, which is great. But it's all around frustrating because a lot of times I have to turn around to my son and say, hey, go email your professor because I can't help you. And I find that's really irritating. But yeah, we're slowly teaching our son. Our son lives at home. We're slowly helping him adult. We started with his bank account. We started with the budget. And as soon as he got his FAFSA money in, we sat down with him and we set out a budget. We actually physically wrote it out. We got him a system that he can, it's a folder system that's labeled so he can figure it out. Like, he has stuff for school in one area and he knows what his bills are. He has his list, and every month we kind of sit down together and say, okay, let's pay your bills. And it's a lot of hand holding for me. It's a good thing I'm a stay-at-home mom, because the support that he needs, I find, is more than what he needed in high school. And and that's a rough one. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Rachel. And I think I can after the meeting, I can connect you to the Neurodiverse Connections group that I referred to, who would be able to, maybe that's a place that you or your son could be involved with, just moving this work forward in Lewis County. So now I know that, let's see, is there anyone else like to share their thoughts as to what the needs for support, what the challenges are and potential solutions or supports needed to for teens and adults to be successful? And Cal, do you want to offer any thoughts from your perspective?
Well, so back when the shutdown first happened and we went fully online, we just recognized pretty soon that this was not going to help our son. Just sitting in front of a computer all day, too much screen time is a bad thing. And even if it's something like doing school. And so we made the decision. He finished out his sophomore year, but we had gotten him into the New Market Skills Center program in automotive service technology. He was being transported up to Tumwater every morning to learn how to work on engines and whatnot, which he loved. We'd been waiting a long time to get him into that. But then 2 weeks after that started, the shutdown occurred. And so they went to just doing online, learning how to fix engines by watching videos. So we came to the conclusion, looking forward, that we didn't know when this was going to stop. We withdrew him after his sophomore year. We're pursuing a GED for him, which my wife has a GED herself, and her other adult kids also got GEDs, so she's familiar with the program. We're trying to, he's doing a lot of practice materials online with the idea of going through Centralia College. They've adapted the GED so that you can do it online. But we're trying to get him through that program and get the GED, get him a job, get him into trade school, we hope, as soon as possible. He has switched from automotive service. He wants to do HVAC now, because we have some friends who do HVAC who've kind of sung its praises. And so he would like to do that. He's very intellectual, but also very hands-on. And so something like that, installing ductwork and engines and fixing things, we said, you want to do that? That's great. We'll support you. But in the meantime, because he is officially, he's 16, he's not in school at this point like his friends are. Well, he doesn't have very many friends, but still his peers. So we're just trying to help him with that. He has applied for things like a fast food job. That's why I was asking, because we've been talking about the interview process. What do you tell people about your quirkiness? And I let him know. You can just let them know that, I have things going on, but they should not affect my job performance if asked. And I know that legally he doesn't have to disclose anything, but at the same time, I would like an employer to know, okay, he's not just a jerk. Don't just fire him from Taco Bell for being a jerk. Because, how much do you let them know? There's stuff going on we can work with, and, it's okay. So anyway, we're looking at trying to get him through the GED, get him into trade school. But in the meantime, he's also doing yard work for people during the day, just individual people, and is actually making some pretty good money doing it. But, we're looking for something long-term, not just continuing to do odd jobs for the rest of his life. But, and the shutdown has really just hit us hard. So my wife was working as a para. She is now at home with him. And so we're down to just my income. And anyway, just trying to navigate the future.
Right. Okay. Thank you for sharing that input. And it sounds like one of the needs or challenges, and I know this has come up with the other members of the Neurodiverse Connections group, and that is just trying to make social connections, connecting with your peers. So developing a circle of friends. And so that's one of the elements that's being worked on or being considered, is especially now in the COVID-19 environment, how that can maybe happen via Zoom or virtually, and then maybe eventually evolve into more of an on-site social activities or other kinds of shared experiences group, including using like a chat program, etc. So that's an area that, again, I think we will want to connect with you or connect you with this effort that's underway within the coalition. So are there any other comments as far as what supports are needed for Lewis County teens and adults at this time? Anybody else like to share their thoughts?
Hi, can I? It's Victoria.
Yeah, Victoria, please.
Just kind of like a variety of different programs available, because I noticed for like a lot of families, like certain things that they don't qualify for, like, say, visions or something. So different options for, because the spectrum is so big and everybody's so different. So and then I also hear that there's, you know, I can't talk today. Sorry, but I think you know what I'm trying to say, like just more choices out there. So instead of just one program that fits this specific type of person with autism in this box, just there needs to be more choices for everybody instead of, you know, having to be a specific way in order to qualify, or in order to be a part of this group, you have to be this way. Because I've noticed that just everybody's so different, and so a lot of people, they just don't feel like there's anything that really fits for them.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Anyone else like to share your thoughts? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let's see. I'm going to provide some additional information about the conference that are connected, workshops that are connected to this topic around the needs of teens and adults, around self-advocacy, around communication skills, etc. Or the point that Sara Gardner was making, which is that or maybe it was Sophia as well, as far as the communication between autistic individuals and typical individuals, that it's being committed to really listening and sharing that experience. So I'm going to show so what I have here is, this is the conference webpage from the Autism Coalition website, and I'm just going to quickly just identify a few workshops that I think you'll find of interest. And registration is underway. So the keynote speaker being Haley Moss, who is an autistic attorney in Florida's first autistic attorney. Reverend Anna Haugen, and these are the live workshops that will be taking place on November 13th. So Reverend Anna Haugen is very specifically about this point of communicating with autistic people. As she says, autistic people communicate differently than holistic people do. When bridging this gap and teaching social skills, quote unquote, the focus is usually on helping autistics communicate more, quote, normally, unquote. But autistic people are only half the equation. Holistics learning to better communicate with autistic people will result in better communication. And then there's another workshop for the conference on relationships, engaging in relationships in a neurodiverse world, and that's led by two neurodiverse presenters, Marcel Champy and J. David Hall. We have a number of additional workshops. We're going to be having pre-recorded workshops. There's going to be one on tips and tools for student success with Monica Meyer. There'll be one from Monica also on transition from high school to career. There'll be Sara Gardner's workshop presentation. Liz Pritchard is going to be providing a workshop, answering questions, providing insights regarding networking and advocacy tips, and making connections through the creative arts. She is a graphic artist. Then there's Sophia's workshop, and you can see additional ones as well. Jen Maria is going to be storytelling as an autistic author and advocate. So the conference is November 13th. It's quite affordable. So for professionals, I'll just go back up here. For professionals, the rate is $40. For parents and teens and adults, it's $25. And scholarships are available, so that's important. So Victoria Romero is in this meeting. She is the point person for requests for scholarships. So if you have a request for a scholarship, you can either put that request in the chat box today if you want, or you could email Victoria or give her a phone call. And so we do have scholarships available if you make the request. And then there will be additional both clock hours and STARS credit available for the conference. So are there any questions about the conference or any additional comments anyone would like to make about the conference?
I just want to say there's plenty of scholarships.
Right.
Yes, we have, right, exactly. So don't hesitate to ask for a scholarship. If you know you want to attend the conference, cost will not be a barrier. So just reach out and request the scholarship, and we want your participation. So this is that's the approach we're taking. Again, this is our 10th annual conference. The first one, obviously, that's not on site. So we're would prefer if we could be on site with 300 like we have had the last 2 years at Centralia College, but this year it's the new normal. We're doing our best to navigate it. So let me just see if there's any other comments as far as either the supports needed for teens and adults, or this is a chance for, as we're starting to wind down the meeting, this is a chance for if you have an announcement that you'd like to make about an upcoming event or a program that is connected to this work, please share that. And this may be an opportunity to, if Shauna is still in the meeting. Yes, Shauna, why don't you go ahead and make an, I know you've got the coffee and conversations meetings each month, and maybe the virtual happy hour too. Why don't you just go ahead and use this as a chance to just let folks know about those events.
Yeah, we have coffee and conversation on the third Tuesday of every month from 9:30 to 11. And I had thought we were going to go back to Zoom format for this month, but I have decided that we're going to do it at Boers Park in the covered picnic shelter, so we can still do it outside and in person, as long as it's hopefully not freezing cold yet. So I'm trying to keep them as in person as long as I can before we have to go back to Zoom. And then the first Friday of every month at 6 o'clock, we are doing a virtual happy hour, which is on the Zoom format, but both are just, you know, a place to come and share and, you know, be supported. Was that it? Sorry, my children are distracting me.
Sure.
Your skin patch event coming up.
So what? Oh, yes. We are doing the pumpkin patch on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. Everybody's welcome. You just need to RSVP. So either by, you can call or text I'll put the information over there in the chat for getting a hold of me for the pumpkin patch. We also have a Christmas, holiday sort of photo session coming up on November 1st. We are doing only limited slots for that. So if anybody's interested in that, also we have that coming up on November 1st. So I will put my contact information in the chat for anybody that's interested in those.
Great, Shauna. And of course, your Facebook page, the Lewis County Parent to Parent Facebook page, is another way for folks to keep informed, keep up to date.
Yep, we have all that stuff posted on there, and we also have an email that goes out for anybody that signed up for Parent to Parent. I will say that because it's a constant contact, a lot of times it seems to go to people's junk mail. So somehow, if you can figure out how to make it not junk, that would be helpful, because I don't know, it seems like that's one of our biggest problems there. So yes, Facebook is usually probably the better way for people to get the information.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there any other announcements anyone would like to make about upcoming activities or events?
Oh, can I for a second?
Sure, and I also will be able to share about the celebration too coming up next week. So, but go ahead, Victoria.
Okay, I just want to let people know that we have started doing like a Zoom night on Saturdays. Not every Saturday, we're planning the next one for young teens to have like a social time. This last one that we did was like a slime night, and the teens they liked it pretty well. It went well. And so we're working on planning the next one, but trying to gather some feedback on what the kids want to do for their next activity. And also I have resources available for families that are distance learning right now. So if you're in need of resources for that, please give me a call or message me on Facebook at just the link, and you can find that through the Lewis County Autism Coalition website as well.
Great. So what's the Saturday night activities? Is there going to be is there a date already determined for the next one, or a regular date each month, or what's the time schedule?
So we're thinking about doing every other Saturday. So we just had our first one. It was 2 Saturdays ago. So just waiting for feedback on if we're going to have one this Saturday, and also I have to wait till the link meeting to find out if there's a budget available. That's what a lot of parents want to start doing, like more activities and stuff. So it's to be determined.
Okay, and what's the age range for that young teens group?
It just depends. I would say about 11 to 15. Okay,
great. So as we're winding down the meeting, I'm going to just share one more piece of information, and that is the, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, here we go. So coming up next Wednesday evening is a Cultivating Inclusion celebration. So Cultivating Inclusion is a county-wide campaign that is really creating a welcoming culture for people with intellectual and developmental, behavioral, other people differences. So it's an education and awareness campaign. The mission is to promote a welcoming culture for people of all abilities. And what we're doing with this celebration is that there has been over 20 individuals nominated for the Cultivating Inclusion Award, and in the area of school, work, and community. And so there's going to be on Wednesday evening coming up, so down here, let's see, October 14th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. And this is on the website, there's an RSVP that we want you to send. That way you'll get the Zoom link, and we'll be, again, honoring this whole range of nominees. You can see there's like 4 individuals under the school category, maybe about 10 or more under work, similar under community. And we'll be providing special recognition to 3 of those individuals during this event. And Natalia Velasquez, who was in this meeting a little bit earlier, will be acting as the MC for the evening. So we'd like to have you all there. There's a likelihood that there will also be simulcast on Facebook Live, so that's a good possibility as well. So again, it's next Wednesday evening, 5:30 to 7. So we hope you can join us. This is the first. Again, this would have been an on-site or in-person event, but had to get rescheduled from last April. So now it's taking place next Wednesday evening. Any questions or comments about the celebration? Okay, and is there anyone else that would like to share any information in this meeting before we adjourn? Okay, well, I thank you all for your participation today. This meeting has been recorded, so the intent is to make it available possibly through our Facebook page or on our website, but there'll be an opportunity for anyone who wants to have access to this meeting, the recording of this meeting after the event. So just let me know if that's something that you're interested in, or look for those details. And I want to just again thank everyone for your participation today, for your presence, as well as for offering your voice in this process and sharing your own personal perspective. That's how we're going to be effective as an autism coalition in Lewis County. So we really appreciate you taking the time to offer your thoughts. So again, thank you all for your participation. Look forward to your presence next Wednesday or at the conference and beyond. And have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.